Wow, I actually uploaded on the second channel. Can you believe it? Well, I'm sure you can, but anyways. What I bet you can't believe is that Iron Lung is out everywhere. Seriously, this movie went from it might show in a few theaters in America to being a cinema an hour away from where I live. So of course, I bought my ticket, headed to the cinema, and let me tell you, I have never seen so many people waiting in the lobby to see a movie in my life. Maybe Endgame had more. But considering how low budget this movie was and how it was in an essence just made by one guy, it was pretty cool to see just how much hype this movie was getting. But anyways, through it all, did I think the movie was good? Well, yes, it was really good. That's kind of all it is. Okay, there is a lot more to talk about with this movie, but I can't really talk about the movie without getting into spoilers. So, if you haven't seen the movie, definitely go watch it. You've got like 5 seconds before I potentially spoil it, so there's your warning. Okay, so the movie takes place inside the Iron Lung for like the entire movie. And I do mean literally the entire movie takes place in this tiny box. And to be honest, I absolutely love this decision. This forces the movie to get very creative with its limited resources. And in my opinion, it pulls that off insanely well. Now, going into this movie, there was one direction I hoped it would go in, which was kind of the psychological horror aspect. And it did that. So, I mean, yay, I enjoyed the movie because it did what I wanted it to do, and it did it very well. But the movie basically follows Markiplier, aka Simon in this movie, I'm not sure how I feel about that name, basically trying to find both something down in the depths, and then eventually trying to make his way back to the extraction point after the line is cut. So basically it's the game, from what I know. I don't know, I kind of forget what Iron Lung was about. Despite the fact that you literally can't physically see what is happening in the outside world, except for one scene, most of the progression of the story is through Simon slowly losing his mind and hope as the oxygen goes down. I also love how the ship slowly begins to turn into almost a living organism through the later parts of the film, actually making the ship an iron lung, creating a more claustrophobic space as time goes on. The film did a really good job taking the limited resources and making a story out of it, despite us still not really knowing everything. The story is vague, but 100% encourages rewatchers to fully understand the story. This is not a movie you can only watch once and just be done with it, and I absolutely love that. In fact, it reminds me a lot of my all-time favourite movie, The Thing, which has a lot of similarities to this movie. Basically, being in the same location, not knowing what's real, and being able to watch the movie again and again and finding something different each time. In fact, I would have rewatched the movie again if it was showing more than 2 times in my theatre. So, you know, whatever, I guess I just have to live with the insanity and suffering of where I actually live. Simon surprisingly goes through a very interesting character arc in this movie. As we learn more about him and his past, we do get this development of a character who wants to just live his life the way that he wants to and not be controlled, but he doesn't want that to be defined by his death, which is something that the movie is very much emphasizing a lot, which is the only way to be free is to die. And this is a point I'm not sure if I was a huge fan of, or at the very least felt was a little rushed, but at the same time, I really loved it. Simon goes through the 5 stages of grief in this film, ending with the acceptance of who he is and willing to take death as it is. Although, I'm sure with more watches, this part of the movie would actually get better and better. Before I continue with the positives, I do want to touch on the very few negatives I have of this movie. And by that, I literally mean there's like nothing I hate about this movie. Any problem that I do have with the movie just comes down to the acting, and obviously, Mark isn't an actor, but considering everything, he did a very good job. I mean, he is the director and editor and kind of the mastermind, and self-editing can be very hard when you're the one that needs to self-edit yourself. So I have to give complete props where props is due. He did a really good job despite everything. It was mainly 1 or 2 scenes where I felt you could have gotten a slightly better take. But despite that, there were a couple of repeating lines I didn't really like, mainly the back and forth between Simon being freed and kind of falling into the same trap again and again, which was a little bit weird, but I think that's also first time watching syndrome. I actually think that point would fade with a second watch, and I probably would enjoy it better, but otherwise, that's all for negatives. Back to the positives, this movie has surprisingly effective horror, and actually some extremely tense moments, and honestly, it was super tense throughout the entire movie. Again, you felt very claustrophobic, which got worse as the movie went on. The imagery and visuals in this movie were amazing, and for such a low-budget film, it was spectacular, and I have to give props. The visuals are not just the ship, but the blood, the organic visuals, and the camera shots. Even the extraction point, which is the only time we see other actors besides Simon's flashbacks, which are also very, very cool. The music in this movie was also amazing, and in fact, I was listening to the soundtrack while writing the script because it's just so good. This movie also has a surprisingly good amount of humor, which is very subtle and works very well without getting distracted. And while part of the humor is just Markiplier being Markiplier, there is also some really funny jokes that don't draw too much attention to themselves, and is actually more of an outside looking in kind of humor. Best example I can think of is when Simon finds a small vial of alcohol to rub onto an infected wound, and just decides to drink it. Funny as shit, but also worked in advancing the plot, showing us the desire of the life Simon always wanted. The movie really takes you through Simon's mental and shows the world around him shift as Simon struggles to find what's real and what's fake, trying to find his way home, acceptance of the inevitable, and the fear of someone who doesn't want to die. There is a surprisingly good amount of growth and thought put into Simon's character and the visuals. The sound design and the overall pace really shine with this. The pacing of this movie is amazing as well, as the editing and the story goes where it needs to be without it dragging on too long. And while it's definitely slow paced, it's edited so well that I could say I was never bored at any point in this movie. To be honest, this is the kind of movie you need to watch again and again, and once I am able to watch it again, I will be. It's just such a fantastic film all around, and talking about it anymore would just be an insult. Go watch this movie if you can. If I had to give it a rating, I would give it a solid 9 out of 10. I love these kinds of movies, and I think you will too. It's definitely not for everyone, but I think it does a really good job of what it is. And it's only not a 10 out of 10 because no movie is a 10 out of 10. Even my favorite movie is only a 9.5 out of 10. Definitely one of, if not the best game adaptation I have ever seen. Anyways, that's for me. Thank you for watching. Let me know what else you want to see and all that sort of stuff. It's the second channel, so I don't know, like I could do more movie reviews or something. Subscribe.